Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The Trudeau Liberals struck down a Conservative motion offering inflationary help to Canadians. The Alberta NDP is launching an investigation into allegations of mistreatment of party volunteers. And we hear the harrowing story of how an 11-year-old girl covered herself in blood, hoping not to be shot during the shooting spree, which left 21 people dead in Texas.
Your nation. Your province. Your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The Trudeau Liberals have voted against the federal Conservatives' motion demanding the federal government address inflation and the high cost of living affecting so many Canadians. The motion was to suspend the GST collected on fuel, freeze the carbon tax, and eliminate tariffs on fertilizer. Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas says Canadians need financial support right now.
For months, we have been asking the government to take action. So we've been asking them to lower taxes. We've been asking them to suspend the carbon tax. We've been asking them to stop their out-of-control spending, which of course is causing greater inflation. We've asked them to remove COVID-19 restrictions, which are preventing some people from entering the workforce. With every single request that we have put forward, action has been refused. The reason we move this motion is because we're wanting to defend Canadians who are working hard and needing an extra element of support.
Now, in a release, CPC Shadow Minister for Finance Dan Albas said Justin Trudeau's vindictive petty politics only hurt Canadians. By defeating our motion to help hardworking Canadians, the Prime Minister isn't hurting the Conservative Party. He is punishing Canadians who can least afford it. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Defence Minister Anita Nand met with NORAD commanders and toured an underground command centre. The discussion was focused on how Canada and the United States plan to upgrade the Joint Command Continental Defence System.
The world is changing in many ways. Threats are evolving, technologies are changing, but one thing that doesn't change is the steadfast partnership and friendship that we have between our two countries, and nowhere is that more obvious than the integrated nature of the work we do here at NORAD, where side by side we keep our citizens safe and look to advancing the causes of a better future.
My counterpart, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, and I work very well together, and we were very pleased to have a discussion today with the Prime Minister and with the General as well. We will continue to work together on our shared priorities.
The Alberta government announced more help for those struggling with drug addictions. The Overdose Prevention app is now available across the province. The Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Mike Ellis, says 70% of opioid-related fatalities occur at a private residence. Ellis says the Digital Overdose Response System, or DORS, has helped many people. He explains how it works.
DORS is a confidential and anonymous app for people using deadly and dangerous drugs at home alone. To use the app, someone just need to download the app, the Digital Overdose Response System, from the App Store to their smartphone. Then the person adds their location information, entry details, and the session then begins. As the session runs, the person will need to respond when the app's timer goes off. If a person doesn't respond to the alarm, they will get a call from the fine folks right here at STARS. If an emergency response is required, STARS will contact EMS to dispatch an ambulance to the person's location. This expansion means that the app is now available throughout Alberta.
Minister Ellis adds that the province is looking into working with First Nations in Alberta and expanding DORS into various reserves and settlements across the province. You know, when the province shut down the Lethbridge supervised consumption site and brought in a mobile unit, many thought that was a huge mistake since the necessary supports were no longer there for those battling drug addictions. There are others, however, who believe it was a good thing since the province was no longer acting as an enabler. James Middleton is a recovered drug addict who's been sober for 3 years, and he says supervised consumption sites are not the best idea.
Yes, they're teaching you how to safely inject, but you're not teaching them how to not OD. And you know, you may go in there and okay, I learned how to inject safely. Now I'm going to go back out. Now I'm going to pump two needles into my arm. And, there's an OD right there. Why can't they take the money from those facilities and put them into opening rehab facilities?
Addictions recovery advocate James Middleton will also discuss the help he received in beating his drug addiction. That's coming up in the second half of our program. Lethbridge police arrested a Calgary woman along with seizing cash and drugs, including the largest quantity of fentanyl to date. Following a search warrant at a home on 13th Street North, police seized $49,300 in cash, which were the proceeds of crime, 478 grams of fentanyl, 200 grams of methamphetamine, 260 grams of cocaine, and 550 grams of illegal marijuana. The street value of the drugs is $126,000. 28-year-old Anne Tran of Calgary faces various charges, including drug trafficking. Tran was released from custody and is expected to appear in court on June the 23rd. NDP leader Rachel Notley says her party is looking into an internal leaked letter which is alleging bullying or poor treatment of party volunteers. According to the Canadian Press, a letter from 15 Alberta NDP constituency presidents and regional vice presidents is calling on Notley and the party to investigate what it calls a pattern of disrespect and mistreatment of party volunteers. The letter also lays out certain concerns over the fairness of the NDP's nomination vetting process. Notley was quoted as saying, "There are two sides to every story," and she would not commit to making public the results of the investigation. The letter calls on Notley and the NDP executive to launch an independent review into reported instances of disrespect or mistreatment of volunteers by party staff. Lethbridge City Council voted 6-3 to form a study on a possible ward electoral system for our region. Officials say it would allow for a potential ward system to be implemented in time for the 2025 municipal election. Lethbridge currently conducts at-large elections where the electors as a whole elect all 8 councillors and the mayor. During the municipal election last year, one of the questions on the ballot asked if people supported a ward system, to which over 55% said yes. Calgary and Edmonton are the only urban municipalities in Alberta with a ward system. There are 3 in Saskatchewan and none in British Columbia. Construction on a new playground in Galt Gardens will soon begin after the city was awarded $375,000 from the federal government's Revitalization Fund. The money will be on a 75 to 25% basis, meaning the city will be putting forward over $100,000 for the inclusive playground. The facility will feature a rubber surface with rolling terrain and lots of playground equipment for kids. An official with the city explains there has always been a priority to build a playground in the gardens for a number of years.
It's taken some time to get there, but thanks to this grant funding, we're really excited to be adding this amenity. And this synergy with the fountain we felt was just the absolute best place to locate it in the park. There's already picnic tables. Families can kind of move in between the 2 spaces, running between fountains and water and into the play area. Yeah, we just think it's going to be really exciting. And then, of course, with the SAG and CASA kind of on either side, again, we really hope that their children's programmings are able to leverage this space.
The city anticipates construction to begin this summer with the completed area done by March of 2023. Chances are you've driven past the Fort Museum in Fort Macleod on the way to Calgary or another city. The museum is a recreation of the 1874 fort that was constructed by the Northwest Mounted Police. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, the current museum was built in 1957 and houses over 9,000 artifacts with a focus on our Mounties.
The fort is dedicated to the history of the Northwest Mounted Police and the evolution to becoming the RCMP they are today.
Sandy Davis, the executive director of the Fort Museum, says the Northwest Mounted Police were formed in 1873, and by the 1910s, they were given a new name.
They were awarded the Royal Northwest Mounted Police through King Edward. And then after that, then they were awarded just the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
The fort has 9 different outbuildings, including a chapel, a ranching and redcoats display, and a dispensary building featuring old medical equipment that was used.
The dispensary has an infant incubator that was used in the Macleod Hospital back, I believe that would have been in the 50s and 60s. The x-ray machines, and then there are examples of some old dentures that they would have had and different other smaller medical instruments that they would have used.
Davis says one of her favorite items from the museum is a dance hall model single-shot pistol in the display case behind me.
The women from back in the day used to hide in their dresses and their skirts for protection, and it's not as intimidating as some of these big rifles that I see, so I quite enjoy that little artifact.
The Fort Museum also showcases the original tombstones from when the first Mounties died.
And they were removed from the cemetery for preservation in the museum and replaced with marble and more hardier tombstones, of course. So these to me are very, very important to honor our fallen members, and even Jerry Potts and his son, who were active members of the force as well as guides, and being able to preserve those for many more years to come.
For more information on the Fort Museum, you can visit nwmpmuseum.com. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Looks like a place we should check out. Environment Week is well underway, and Environment Lethbridge has been hosting events honoring nature. This is the first year for those activities since 2019 due to the pandemic. Thursday will feature an event on local Indigenous plants, and on Friday, Blackfoot speakers will teach on how you can learn about the land from their cultural perspective. Kathleen Shepard, the executive director of the group, says this is an important week for the community.
I think from our perspective, we really hope this is an opportunity for people to learn about the environment in a new way, maybe to set a goal or two or about something they can do. But hopefully it's a fun week for people to try some new things, to learn some new things, and just kind of celebrate our environment.
Environment Week festivities will wrap up with a Nature Play Day on June the 12th, 12 noon at Henderson Lake. The town of Nobleford recently passed a bylaw that allows residents to have chickens on their property. The new legislation came into effect as a result of feedback from the community. Town Mayor Bill Outshorn says at this time they're only allowing up to 50 residents to apply for a license, and there are guidelines that they must follow.
Their neighbors have to be in agreement. There's a limit of 5 chickens. There are coop requirements as to size, and there are certain things that we have expectations as far as having chickens. And initially, I think, it's a 1-year probationary before you get your official chicken license, so to speak.
Mayor Outshorn says the license is intended for those using their chickens for personal egg consumption. Now, it's not for becoming an egg dealer or enjoying the chickens in a Kentucky Fried manner. There's been a lot of talk about herd immunity during the COVID-19 pandemic, some of the best ways we can protect ourselves from viruses. Dr. Clayton Coggino from Well Vitality Health Clinic says a common cold may be a good way of helping to strengthen our children's immune systems.
It's a good thing they're getting colds. It's building their immune system. It's building their defense to more harmful viruses and bacteria they might encounter through their lives. And the research is really clear. Whether you take your child to daycare or leave them at home, throughout their life, they're going to be getting roughly about the exact same amount of illnesses up to adulthood as either child would.
Dr. Coggino will also discuss foods that can really help build up our immune systems. He'll have details coming up after business news. For the first time since the pandemic, the Sobayaju Turning Point Charity Foundation will be hosting a restoration concert to raise funds to help build a safe gathering place for women and young children in Ogun, Nigeria. There's no place for the women or kids to gather for after-school programs. Now, a member of the organization says there are a number of things that will be available to the women and kids once it's up and running.
We saw the need to do this when we had the opportunity of an available land to help bring charity, bring initiatives together, and help to build such a facility, a safe gathering place for mothers and children, so that they can learn weaving, braiding, hair design, fashion design, crafts, painting, sculpting, learning music instruments, playing music, drama and scripture.
A volunteer for the concert says being able to gather and raise funds is most needed right now.
For people back home in Nigeria, it's a huge opportunity. It's like an awakening. First, we're getting a safe place for the women and the children. That the importance of that cannot be overstated. And second, just knowing that there's someone out there like a big brother that isn't just watching this time, but like cares about them, and they're willing to put aside whatever pandemic is in town and just gather just to help raise funds.
The concert will be taking place on Friday, and details on how you can donate can be found on our website, bridgecitynews.ca. The mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, has called on U.S. Congress to end gun violence and protect the lives of Americans. He made the plea during his testimony to members of the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Reform.
Time to decide if it's more important to protect the profits of gun manufacturers or the lives of our children. Time to decide if we are going to be a nation of laws or confederation of chaos, and we must do it now. I'm here today to ask every one of you and everyone in this Congress to stand with all of us to end gun violence and protect the lives of Americans. We are facing a crisis that is killing more Americans than war, a crisis that is now the #1 cause of death for our young people.
An 11-year-old Uvalde, Texas shooting survivor told U.S. Congress how she covered herself in blood and played dead before calling 911 pleading for help. This is Mia Cirillo's testimony on that fateful day, which saw 19 students and 2 teachers shot dead following a 21-year-old shooting spree at her elementary school.
When I went to the barracks, he shot my friend that was next to me, and I thought he was going to come back to the room, so I grabbed the blood and put it all over me. And
what did you do then when you put the blood on yourself?
just stay quiet, and then I got my teacher's phone and called 911.
And what did you tell 911?
I told her that we need help and to send the police in our classroom.
If there was something that you want people to know about that day and about you, right? Or things that you want different, what would it be?
To have security.
Do you feel safe at school? Why not?
Because I don't want it to happen again.
Photographer Clark Little is known for his stunning images inside of some of the most powerful and dangerous waves in the world. The Hawaii native just released a new book that chronicles years of capturing the beauty of the ocean.
Shorebreak is so beautiful and scary at the same time. Like I said, I used to surf the shorebreak, so it's my comfort zone. I like sand bottom. I think it has more aqua, beautiful colors. The book came out about a month ago, and gosh, it's awesome. I'm so stoked on the whole, just how it turned out and you know, getting all the support.
I can see why he is stoked. Some pretty cool shots of some pretty big waves. Well, the moisture we've experienced here in southwestern Alberta has left us for now, with more sunshine on the way. Full weather details are coming up. We had sunshine mixed with clouds today and fairly dry. Tonight it should be mainly clear with a low near 10 degrees. Thursday mainly sunny with a high expected near 25. Friday even warmer with a high of 26 under a mainly clear sky. Not a bad weekend is shaping up either. Saturday expect lots of sunshine and a high of 24. Just a few clouds at 23 on Sunday. Monday slightly cooler with a high of 17. Tuesday a mixture of sun and cloud and a high near 20. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 21 degrees with an average low of 8. The record high was 33 degrees set back in 1948, and the record low was -1 in 1999. The sun rose at 5:25 and set at 9:36. Let's see how Thursday is shaping up across the country now. Expect rain and a high of 15 degrees in Victoria, periods of rain developing at 17 in Vancouver. Partly cloudy and 23 degrees in Edmonton. Mainly sunny at 24 for Calgary on Thursday. A chance of thunder showers developing and a high of 24 for Regina. Showers and 25 is on tap for Saskatoon. In Winnipeg, it should be mainly sunny and 24 degrees. In the central part of the country, you can expect showers and 23 in Toronto, a few showers and 16 in Ottawa, lots of rain and 19 degrees in Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, a good chance of showers should develop and a high of 21 in Fredericton. Rain and 18 degrees in Halifax. Mainly cloudy and 21 in Charlottetown. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, it should be overcast and a high near 11 degrees on Thursday. Alberta's Energy Minister, Sonia Savage, says Canada must not follow Britain's lead in imposing a so-called windfall tax on the profits of oil and gas companies. She says such a step would be considered an extreme act of aggression against provincial constitutional authority. The Trudeau Liberals have not proposed the tax on the energy sector yet, as governments around the world look at ways of helping people with rising inflation. The UK recently imposed additional taxes on oil and gas firms to help fund cash payments to offset the cost of rising energy bills. The United States is also considering a similar program. Ukraine's ambassador to Canada says Canadian oil and gas will be needed to replace shipments from Russia when an EU embargo comes into effect next year. Yulia Kovalev told an energy conference in Calgary that Canadian energy companies can help in the fight against Russia's invasion of Ukraine by entering and expanding into the European market. American officials say Russian oil production is expected to fall around 18% to 9.3 million barrels a day by the end of 2023. Kovalev says replacing barrels that would have been shipped to Europe will be a major challenge, but could be a big opportunity for Canada. Meanwhile, European Union lawmakers have approved a proposed ban on cars with combustion engines by the year 2035 in the fight against climate change. The European Parliament voted to require automakers to cut carbon dioxide emissions by 100% by the middle of the next decade. The mandate would amount to a prohibition in the 27-nation EU on the sale of new cars powered by gas or diesel. Dollarama says its first quarter profit was up 28% from a year ago to $145.5 million. The discount retailer says sales also increased from $954 million to $1.07 billion in the same quarter last year as COVID-19 restrictions were lifted. Dollarama says it also benefited as the consumer hunt for value increased amid soaring inflation. The Montreal-based company says it will continue to work to mitigate ongoing supply chain and cost pressure to provide consumers with the best relative value on the market. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 135 points on the day to 20,792. The Dow was down 269 points to 32,910. The S&P 500 was down 44 points to 4115. And the Nasdaq was down 88 on the day to 12,086. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $2.70 to $122.11 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 59 cents to $8.70 US. Gold was down 2 cents to $18.53.35 US an ounce, and silver was up a cent to $22.06 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $15.51 per bushel. Barley's at $10.08. Canola's at $25.39. And corn is at $11.94 per bushel. Live cattle were up $3.10 to $136.83. Feeder cattle August contract was up $3.20 to $175.65, and lean hogs were down 58 cents to $107.85. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.64 US. Recapping one of our top stories, the Alberta government announced more help for those struggling with drug addictions. The overdose prevention app known as DOORS, or Digital Overdose Response System, is now available across the province. The Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Mike Ellis, says 70% of opioid-related fatalities occur at a private residence. Ellis says the Digital Overdose Response System works with STARS Air Ambulance and EMS to get Albertans help when they need it the most. Coming up, we hear from a man who battled and beat his drug addiction. James Middleton will describe his journey and talk about the support that's available to those who are battling drug and alcohol addiction. He'll have details for us in just a moment.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. Target Hunger is Lethbridge's annual citywide food drive, which is taking place Saturday, June 11th. Help support a worthy cause by filling a grocery bag with the most wanted non-perishable food items and leaving it on your doorstep for Target Hunger volunteers to pick up. It's a great way to contribute to our city's food banks and to help those in need in our community. To find out more and to volunteer, visit targethungerlethbridge.com. Discover how Lethbridge has played an important military role in the preservation of world peace and security by visiting the Lethbridge Military Museum at the Vimy Ridge Armory at the Lethbridge Airport. The museum is open to the public each Wednesday from noon to 4 p.m. Special arrangements for other days and times can be made by calling 403-892-6531. Admission is free, but donations are gratefully accepted. For more information, visit lethbridgemilitarymuseum.org. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The recent government mandates and the pandemic-related restrictions had a dramatic effect on so many of us. Some would agree that the repercussions are still being felt in many Canadian homes. Now, one coping mechanism among many Canadians during this difficult time was the increased use of drugs and alcohol. Another problem that arose during the last couple of years was the lack of in-person meetings for support and recovery groups. Joining us now to talk about the ongoing issues is addictions recovery advocate James Middleton, joining us from Oshawa, Ontario. James, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you. I appreciate the time and the effort you guys are putting into helping people.
Absolutely, you're welcome. James, can you give us kind of an overview of your experience with drug use and your recovery during the pandemic?
So I've been an addict for 20 years, in and out of recovery homes 5 times. The 5th time, I finally caught the program. I've been clean for almost 3 years now. So that's saving grace to my family because they've always tried to, get me into recovery homes before I finally figured I needed help.
I'm glad to hear that you've been clean for a while now. Now, do you feel, though, however, during the pandemic that maybe you've heard of more increased instances of drug and alcohol use? People suffering from anxiety and depression?
Yes, for sure. So as an advocate for addicts, I do talk to a lot of addicts. Last time I checked the stats, suicides were up 99% and addictions were up 50%.
So what did you see amongst your peers as some of the biggest challenges that arose because of the pandemic restrictions? Talk to me about those.
The restrictions, so the first wave, there was no meetings, like you said. They closed the meetings. And I think that really sent a lot of people out. The isolation, not being to physically be there amongst your fellow addicts who are like-minded. And that's who I try to surround myself with is like-minded people and positive people.
What's interesting is my nephew, he was 25 years young when he passed away from a drug overdose a couple of years ago. He tried to get into a program at a Calgary hospital and they shut down the program at that time saying we have to make more room for COVID patients. But at the same time, there seemed to be a lot of empty beds there at the time. And sadly, a week after they canceled that program, he passed away. So it was devastating for our family here. And you've heard of other cases like that too, haven't you?
I have. We've had a lot of group members pass away during the pandemic. One of them I was helping. So he went back out, and the next day I found out that he passed away. That's not the only one. There's hundreds worldwide that have been affected by this pandemic.
So James, what do you really see as an impact of not having the in-person meetings for support and recovery? How important is that?
Very important. For me, I need that physicality of being around somebody, the physical hugs. We shake hands in NA meetings and we say, hugs, no drugs. I was on Zoom and they really didn't help because there's no, how do I say it? There's no guidelines and there's nobody to stop people from talking about specific drugs and all that, right? Where in the meetings we say DOC because it could trigger somebody. Me, I'm strong enough in my recovery where you can sit there and talk about my DOC, which was cocaine. It doesn't bother me now.
Yeah. So let me ask you something, James. When you're talking, sitting across from, let's say somebody who is addicted to drugs or alcohol, and they say, listen, dude, I'm doing this to numb the pain. I need this for escapism. I don't really want your help. Are you still able to help them? Or do they have to reach that rock bottom point where they say, you know what, now it's time for me to reach out for help?
For me, I had to hit my rock bottom point. For some, they just figure it out. They know they need the help. They know they've messed up in life. And they just want to go get the help. And I've had a couple friends that have done that. They've seen me come as far as I have in my recovery, and they're like, man, I want that. And that's what you want in recovery, is you want to see what everybody else has, and then it catches your attention more.
So what do you say to that person when you see them slowly going down the wrong road, especially if it's a young person, maybe a teenager? How do you take them aside and say, you know what, you need to make better life choices, and I'm here to help you?
So right now I'm in college, so I'm actually learning how to do this. I'm in college to be an addictions counselor, so I'm learning how to do this, and I would just take them aside and get to know them first, right? And then give them my number and build a rapport and a friendship, friendship with them, and not grill them and be like, you need to like get your stuff in order. You slowly just slip it in there, right? But you say it in a nicer way, right? It's not easy because I've been down that road, and when somebody's not receptible to that, you really can't get the information to them the proper way because they're just not listening.
So build that relationship with them, maybe take them to a Blue Jays game. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. That'd be the best place to go.
Do you think sometimes not having a solid parental influence in a young person's life may have that effect, where they maybe turn to drugs and alcohol?
Yeah, exactly. So my father wasn't around either, right? So that kind of diminished my self-worth, my love for myself, because I didn't think I was good enough for everybody. Rejection. The list goes on. I could sit here for 2 hours and give you a bunch of stuff that's gonna, deteriorate somebody to go out and use. Trauma is a big one. A lot of trauma victims, they do go out and become addicts. So I took a trauma course, and I believe that is what really helped me. It was get past that trauma and move on in life and be there for my son.
Now, James, increased rates of suicide were also seen here in Southern Alberta during the early days of pandemic restrictions. Can you talk a bit about how sometimes drug use and suicide go hand in hand?
So this is tough because I lost a best friend to suicide 3 years ago.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's tough. I've never been through it, and I relapsed after that. So it was right before I got into a rehab facility. So yeah, suicide and drugs are hand in hand. When you're using, you're happy, you're replacing endorphins, so you're releasing those endorphins, and your brain is used to getting endorphins just from the drugs. So when you're in recovery, your brain is still trying to produce its own endorphins. And that's where depression can come in. It doesn't always come in right away. Like I said, I'm almost 3 years clean, and I'm just starting to see depression creep in. So, they definitely do go hand in hand. And this is why I want to work with youth before they do go out and become full-blown addicts.
James, let's talk about how much of a challenge that is. Some people can go cold turkey. Other people, like I know with my mother, when she tried to quit smoking, it took her 6-7 times before she was able to do it. But when it comes to an addiction to drugs, like hardcore drugs, meth, crack cocaine, or even alcoholism, I mean, it's a process, isn't it?
It is. So you said that your nephew got kicked out of a rehab because of COVID. There are other rehab facilities. So like Teen Challenge out in Pritis. It's a process to get into that facility. You got to go get a TB test. You got to go get STI tests. Just a whole bunch of tests. And they're just trying to protect their people, right? And I totally get that. The one program that I just finished almost 3 years ago, it could take up to 6 months to get in because there is so many people that want to get the help, but there isn't enough facilities. You know, I'm trying to, I'm trying to find a lawyer and sue all of these rehab facilities that are making addicts go get the vaccine in order to get the help. I believe, in my own opinion, that is wrong. This is a medical, they're medical facilities. They should not be rejecting them. You know, it's sad that we're living in this time, but for me, it made me stronger. And it made me want to be become more of an advocate for addicts.
So you're believing essentially that somebody shouldn't have to be vaccinated in order to receive the help, correct?
Exactly. In the Bill of Rights or the Human Rights, I can't remember, but one of those, it states that a Canadian should never be refused medical treatment, and rehab facilities are considered under the law or under the rights of Canadians as medical facilities.
So James, how can the church really help here in Canada for those who are seeking recovery?
So I want to open up more facilities because our government does not want to. I haven't seen any new facilities since I've come back to Ontario from Alberta. I attended that Teen Challenge facility in Prentice. Churches, and you know, I want to reach out to every single church and see if they can even help. Just open up one. You know, that's one extra one that we could maybe have 100 beds for. And, you know, I'll take people from around Canada. I'll fly you out. I don't care. I want to help people. I want to save lives.
Now, here in Lethbridge, you may recall we had that supervised consumption site, Arches, for quite a while. It seemed to be a bit of a divisive issue here in our community and ended up having some severe negative impacts that are being felt today. But then other people were advocating, saying, no, we needed to have something like that, especially with the 4 pillars when it comes to addiction recovery, the detox beds. What's your opinion of these supervised injection sites?
Wow, I'm actually glad you asked me. I don't like them. I feel that they're promoting drug use. It's funny, I actually did a paper on injection sites for school. I got a lot of good feedback on it. So like I said, I feel like they're promoting, yes, they're teaching you how to safely inject, but you're not teaching them how to not OD. And you know, you may go in there and, okay, I learned how to inject safely. Now I'm going to go back out. Now I'm going to pump two needles into my arm. And, you know, there's an OD right there. Why can't they take the money from those facilities and put them into opening rehab facilities? I don't get our government. I don't understand why, why they don't care about humans.
You know, here in the province of Alberta, the UCP government has been promoting and supporting an increase in recovery programs and detox centres. However, just recently, the province of British Columbia, you may have heard about this, decided to decriminalize the possession of 2.5 grams of a variety of drugs, including cocaine. What's your take on these two different approaches?
So I'm actually glad you brought that up because I just found out about that 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to get a petition going. I want to decriminalize drugs. So Portugal has done it, and I believe they were the first in the world to decriminalize drugs. And they've seen dramatic percentages drop. OD deaths drop dramatically.
Don't you think we'll become enablers by decriminalizing the drugs? Saying, hey, it's cool, you can have some cocaine, some opioids, some meth, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I get that part. So for me, like, I don't like what BC's doing. They are enabling because they're not forcing people to go get the help. Where I want people to go get the help. So you either have two choices. You go to jail, or you do your time, or you go to a rehab facility and get the help, right? And I feel that Portugal did it, and I feel that Canada would be able to benefit from it too.
Have you ever spent any time in jail?
I did some time, yes.
Now, when you're in jail and talking possibly to some of the other inmates, did they have similar issues to you as well when it comes to depression, anxiety, maybe drugs and alcohol use?
Yes, a lot of them did. I was put in with murderers and rapists and everything because I did a few years. um, so jail makes people worse. It mentally it makes you worse because you're isolated. You're around criminals, right? So now you're going to start acting like a criminal. So this is why I want people to deteriorate them to go get the help instead of going to jail.
So James, we only have about 30 seconds left here, but I wanted to ask you specifically, what advice would you give to addicts, people who are watching our program right now, who may feel helpless, like there's no way out of their situation?
Get the help. Go to a rehab facility. Call somebody. Go to meetings. Just if you really, really, really want it, you will find the help.
James Middleton is an addictions recovery advocate. Thanks for joining us today from Oshawa, Ontario.
I really appreciate the time, and thank you for letting me speak out on addiction and getting the help.
With health struggles we've been seeing around the globe, more and more people are trying to find ways to really strengthen their immune systems. Our guest today is Dr. Clayton Coggino, who has some ideas about that. He's a naturopathic doctor in Lethbridge with Well Vitality Health Clinic. He's also done some training in conventional medicine with a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science, Kinesiology, and doing 3 years of research on radiation with cancer at the University of Lethbridge. Dr. Coggino, welcome back to BCN.
Thanks for having me.
Now, with all the health challenges we're seeing these days, it seems there's a big spike in people who want to really build up their immune system in order to stay healthy. I'm guessing that our diet maybe plays a bit of a role in that. Are there certain foods maybe we should avoid or limit?
Yeah, there's certain foods that just everyone should be limiting, not necessarily fully avoiding, but limiting. Those foods are like things like refined carbohydrates, processed meats. Meats typically are higher in inflammatory foods like omega-6s, cured meats, same thing, fast foods. And then there's also other things that lower the immune system with our food, where it's actually activating our immune system, like food sensitivities, and even certain diseases that can be undetected sometimes for years. And the general premise is you want to lower those inflammatory foods because they can lead to a whole wide variety of issues internally in your body, such as increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut. And that basically activates your immune system in a bad way. It's taking away from what your immune system could be fighting because it's fighting a lot of the food that you're eating.
So what kinds of foods will actually build up our immune system? I'm a big supporter of a lot of berries. I like the blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. What are your thoughts on those? The berries.
That's right. Like those are fantastic. I mean, those are pretty much a gimme. They're high in things called bioflavonoids. They're high in antioxidants, and those are the exact opposite of what those other pro-inflammatory foods I just listed do. Turmeric is another really good one. Garlic is another really good one. Just very high in antioxidants. They lower inflammation in your body, as opposed to omega-6, which would be high in more red meats and meats in general. A lot of the vegetables and fruits, berries, they're high more so in these bioflavonoids. Fish are high in omega-3, which is a anti-inflammatory molecule in our body. So they reduce stress on our body. And, when we're talking immune system, we have to talk what's going to lower stress on your body in multiple ways. And so those foods will really more so help you with that.
So when it comes to vegetables, Dr. Coggino, is it best to maybe eat them raw to get all the nutrient value, or is it sometimes even better to cook them to release more of the nutrients?
Well, I mean, clinically, what I see is some patients, like when you cook, you do decrease some vitamins and minerals potentially, especially at high heats. But I think it doesn't really necessarily matter. As long as you're eating, I think the biggest thing is that most people aren't eating vegetables fruits as high in quantity as they should be. So I try not to create restrictions based on that. Even if you do get slightly decreased vitamin or mineral consumption with cooked, some people need cooked just due to digestive health issues. It's easier to digest those things, even if raw typically does yield slightly higher vitamin or minerals.
Now, I understand that even good food won't help as much as it should if we're really having trouble absorbing it properly. Dr. Colgano, how can we really tell if the food is being absorbed properly in our bodies?
Well, I typically like testing in my clinic for different things, but there's different tests. So we can do food sensitivity testing, we can do celiac testing, we can do a lot of different tests to look at how is your gut health? Because that is really, it's the number one thing that's going to prevent absorption or lead to malabsorption of nutrients. There are certain tests that we can actually look into mineral consumption, like how are you deficient in certain minerals? Are you deficient in certain vitamins? And so I think that, usually when you have symptoms. Are you tired? Do you have gut pains? Do you have irritable bowel syndrome? But sometimes it's just simple, like sometimes it's just bloating. And it's nothing even major. Sometimes it's a little afternoon fatigue in someone, and they don't understand that it's actually being linked to malabsorption of nutrients through problems with their digestive tract. So it's really important to look into it for people to figure it out.
So how can a person really determine if it's time to see a healthcare practitioner in order to get some help boosting his or her immune system?
Well, I mean, the rough average for getting sick is around 2 to 4 times a year, getting a cold. And averages are a little difficult. Some people would be less, some people might be a little more, depending. If you're getting ill more than you think, then it would be time to go in and get it checked out. But also, if you're feeling extra tired or fatigued, or you're feeling like you have digestive issues where you never had them before, then it's time to start thinking about looking into getting some testing done and figuring it out, because all of those things, even stress, will drag your immune system down and you'll get sick more frequently.
So to what degree do health supplements like vitamins, herbs, and minerals actually help to boost the immune system?
I'm a proponent more so of supplementation in certain cases, not always. I don't like patients just taking copious amounts of supplements, but supplements can help, and a lot of them are very, very well researched. Pretty much all doctors now agree that vitamin D, especially during the winter, is an essential vitamin that people basically should all be taking. Most doctors don't even test it anymore because we pretty well assume everyone's deficient. However, with it becoming more popular, what I'm finding is some people are actually taking too much of it, and you don't want that either. So I do find testing it occasionally is a good idea, and also not taking over the recommended, daily intake of it unless advised. But there's also a lot of great research on herbs as well. For example, astragalus is a herb that increases your white blood cell count. Beta glucans, which come from mushrooms, as well as N-acetylcysteine, are very antiviral. Garlic is antiviral. They're really great at boosting your immune system. Certain vitamins that we would think would prevent, like vitamin C, don't actually prevent you from getting sick. They've been shown not to prevent, but they will lower the amount of time. They've been shown they lower the amount of time you will be sick if you get sick. So a lot of times when people are sick, I'll give a complex that has vitamin A, C, E, selenium, and zinc in it, antioxidants, things that help out your body fight things and lower the stress on your immune system while your body's fighting something.
Now, Dr. Colgano, it seems like the older we get, it seems the more likely we are to have a weaker immune system. Do you have any special advice for seniors as to how help build their immunity?
Yeah, so as we age, we lower the number of specific type of white blood cell called a neutrophil, and other ones called T cells. These are part of our immune system that fight against viruses, bacteria, etc. And they do lower as we age. There was one study done, and what it showed was exercise is actually very beneficial as you age. 10,000 steps a day, if you can get that in. But I think also, even if the study design was showing 10,000 steps, it's more the general premise. Exercise is going to boost up those cells to an equivalent range of a young, healthy adult. So even something so simple as doing just even some extra exercise, it will be beneficial to building up your immune system.
I have to tell you, since we got a dog, I'm taking the dog out for walks, or maybe he's taking me out for walks, and I've noticed a difference as well. That 2K walk every night after dinner, it makes a huge difference for him and for myself. It's been amazing. Now, what about kids? They normally have a very strong immune system, but are there certain things we should maybe help the kids with to help boost their immune systems?
I'm not a huge proponent of giving children lots of supplements. I think that vitamin D would be good, perhaps a probiotic in general, but not always. Children, I feel it's actually, pending it's within reason, it's a good thing they're getting colds. It's building their immune system. It's building their deep defense to more harmful viruses and bacteria they might encounter through their lives. And the research is really clear. Whether you take your child to daycare or leave them at home, throughout their life, they're going to be getting roughly about the exact same amount of illnesses up to adulthood as either child would. So whether it be now or later, it's actually not a bad thing that your child is getting sick, even if it's inconvenient for us as parents. And certainly if they become sick, then I'd be more a proponent to taking the vitamin C, maybe upping the vitamin D a little bit. And certainly you can see a naturopathic doctor and they can easily advise you and help you with that.
I remember when I was a kid, a lot of our parents would get together and have chickenpox parties, send me to another kid who's got chickenpox, and all of us would get together so we could have chickenpox at the same time and then get over it and build up an immunity to it, I guess, afterwards. I'm not sure if that's probably the best advice today, but back in the 70s and 80s, that's what our parents were doing, right? Now, how much of a role does lack of sleep, stress, and anxiety play when it comes to immunity?
Well, lack of sleep is a huge stressor on the body. And it's a very common cause of a low immune system because it's when we sleep that our body's cells and cellular mechanisms called cytokines are released. That's when we're actually fighting infection, mostly, is when we sleep. And it's a huge stressor on our bodies for multiple reasons. It lowers different hormones in our bodies that help to fight and keep our immune system up, like cortisol, which also in turn can affect other issues going on in our body. But stress is probably one of the most common causes of digestive issues as well in our body, and increased intestinal permeability, which also adds to more stress on the body and a low immune system. And so there's a lot of different things that we want to do to, when people come in, to decrease their stress, because if you don't decrease stress, and stress can come in many forms, like lack of sleep, then you're not going to get anywhere with fixing someone's immune system.
So outside of diet, exercise, and proper sleep patterns, what else can we really do to reduce stress? Maybe take up a hobby?
Yeah, lifestyle modifications are huge, absolutely. Pending they don't stress you out to do them. Yoga, meditation, even just going for a walk. It's all extremely important, Supplementation wise, there's other things more natural that you can do to lower stress as well, like 5-HTP, B6 glycine, St. John's wort. Valerian is very mood stabilizing. So there's a lot of options, both lifestyle as well as supplementation, to help to lower stress.
What helps me as well is a relationship with God and lots of prayer, meditating on His Word, and just spending time with God. That gives me a lot of peace and takes away a lot of my stress as well for my family. Now, what about those who suffer from insomnia? My son is one of them. Is there any help for people suffering from insomnia?
Yeah, so I mean, clinically, I love to test things. And unfortunately, insomnia is one of those things where it is very difficult to test brain chemicals and to try and figure out what brain chemical is creating that insomnia. Sometimes it's lifestyle, sometimes it's dietary related, sometimes it's stress, in someone's life that's creating it, which typically is easier to assess and treat. But if it's something more unknown, it's a little trickier. You have to sort of try things. Sometimes we try things like passion flower root, which is very calming and sedating. Chamomile tea is also calming and sedating. But there's a bunch of other vitamins and herbs as well that we can try to help. And really, sometimes we have to use combinations of these things. Melatonin, GABA sometimes can help. And it's definitely worth trying, trying those supplements. Sometimes they work right away. Other times you have to try them for a bit and try different combinations. But it's worth trying because sleep is so important for everything, including mental health.
Would you still advise people getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night?
If possible, absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes that is a challenge, absolutely.
It can be. We have busy, stressful lives.
Dr. Clayton Coggino is a naturopathic doctor in Lethbridge with Well Vitality Health Clinic. Dr. Coggino, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks very much for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.